So, greetings everyone once again, and welcome to the 83rd session of the online Optom Learning series. Let me introduce to you our speaker for today. So, today we have Optom Shrikant Dumpati. Shrikant finished his bachelor's from Bharatiya Vidyapeeth School of Optometry, Pune, India, and went ahead to do his master's from the MET University, Gurgaon. He has a vast experience as a clinician, as an educator, as well as a researcher in the field of contact lenses. And he was associated with the contact lens department of the LV Prasad Eye Institute for a period of 13 years. And very recently, he's joined the Marie Curie Research Fellow at the Aston University in the UK. And his special interests include contact lenses, specialty lenses, as well as scleral lenses. And today he is going to talk to us about contact lens complications, what is the pathophysiology, and probably some kind of management, what we primary eye care optometrists, as we all fit contact lenses into our routine practices, how to go about identification, why does this complication happen, and how would we manage this complication. That's the agenda of the talk today. So welcome, sir, onto our platform. I will leave the screen time to you now.
Thank you, Fakhruddin, for the nice introduction. And I would congratulate it's my pleasure to be part of the ULS education program. So it is very well successfully run by the Fakhruddin from Malaysia. So happy to be part of this session, and then I hope you will enjoy my session. So now, without any further delay, so I'll go with my talk. So here, as Fakhruddin rightly said, I'm going to talk about the soft contact lens complications. So especially, so my talk will be basically depend upon what are the types of the classifications, risk factors, and the clinical features, pathogenesis, and the management. If you look at the complications when it comes to especially for soft contact lenses, you can divide it into more of if you want to give a classification, you can go with the hypoxia related changes. What are the complications you come across? So another, it could be mechanical related. Either it could be the mechanical friction of the contact lenses to the eye structures, or any kind of ill-fitting characteristics. And then most commonly, or what we come across in the regular practice, is inflammatory reactions and infectious. So these are the more four components I'm going to deal, and how the classification taken care, and details about the clinical features and management. So first, I would like to talk about the risk factors of the contact lens complications, especially for the soft contact lenses. So one of the most important risk factor what we come across, or what we discuss in the over the years also, it's more of hypoxia. The hypoxia is nothing but it is the lack of oxygen. So if you see that, so the major the mechanism which behind is the corneal tissue, especially the corneal, which is the structure which is there. So definitely that need the oxygen to maintain the good physiological metabolism, right? So that's, everyone knows that. So once you place the lens over the contact lens over the cornea, so definitely there will be some compromise on the oxygen supply to the corneal tissue, right? So even if you talk about open eye condition, when you talk about open eye condition, you tend to get a good oxygen supply from the atmosphere. Around 21% of the oxygen supply from the atmosphere. So that gives the very good supply to the corneal tissue, especially epithelial, stromal, and endothelial, and it maintains a good physiological metabolism. Whereas when you talk about closed eye condition, so when the eye is closed during the sleep, so the amount of the oxygen which get from the source will be very limited, because once you close, so there is no atmosphere getting the oxygen. So there are some sources in the structural level. So especially when you talk about aqueous humor, arterial film, or limbal vasculature, these structures provide the oxygen to the cornea, but that will be limited to this only 7% of that. So that is the major reason. So the 7% of the oxygen may not be sufficient enough to maintain the good corneal physiology, metabolism. So that's the reason. So you tend to get more of because of the oxygen supply is not enough to maintain the physiological changes. So you tend to see the fluid accumulation on the corneal structures level and the edema and further complications. I will be going to more discuss about in what are the clinical manifestation you come across with the hypoxia. And another risk factor which comes is the deposits. So deposits formation on the contact lens surface. So this is due to the interaction of the tear film, right? So when the tear film ingredients, you have a protein, lipids, and the calcium, other kind of ingredients which are there. So what happens? It's the over a period of time, the proteins can form as the on the contact lens surface and build as a deposits. So that the deposits can lead to having some kind of mechanical complications like papillary changes or any other inflammatory reactions also can come across. And this is more common with the soft contact lenses compared to the RGP lenses. And another mechanical complications which come across is the more of related to the fitting characteristics. So even if you get a tight fit, suppose if you're talking about soft lens or RGP lens, if you get a tight fit, so what happens? The lens adhere to the structures, either cornea or conjunctiva. So when into the lens adheres, what happens? So there will be some indentation. If it is RGP, corneal indentation. If it is soft lens, you tend to see on the limbal area or conjunctival area, you tend to see the indentation. So that lead to have the conjunctival blood flow will be restricted. So that can lead to have the more of, okay, so the blood flow obstructed. So inflammatory reactions can take place, and then that gives a discomfort also. And apart from that, if you are given the ill fitting, like especially the loose fitting characteristics, if you're given, so the lens tend to move more, it gives the lens edges touch to the corneal epithelium and give the aberrations, and that lead to have more of friction changes and erosions can come across. So another risk factor is more of inflammatory responses. The inflammatory responses, it could be because of the deposits, which I already discussed, or it could be because of the microorganisms. So the microorganisms, they develop the toxins and then penetrate to the contact lens tissues, contact lens, and through corneal tissue and develop any inflammatory reaction. So we'll discuss further about how that mechanism which acts there. And another, it could be solution. The solution, the preservatives which are there. If you have a strong preservatives, it is definitely irritates the ocular surface. So that can lead to have toxic reactions, and then they'll be having the more symptoms, and clinically also it is gives the much ocular surface will be disturbed also. And moving on to the contributing factor. So what are the factors which influence you? So one of the most thing is the lens material. Yeah, this is important factor which I was saying initially about the hypoxia related. So suppose if you have a high decay material, so definitely what happens, even if it is slightly closed day condition, even in the extended wear also, so it maintains the good oxygen supply to the cornea and so provide the good oxygen to corneal tissues, and it may not minimize the any kind of hypoxia changes. So that way, so you should able to prescribe which is having high decay material. The current practice, we go with the more of silicone hydrogel lenses, so which are available. Like if you see the criteria, the extended wear, or if at all if the daily wear criteria you have, even if you want to prescribe a daily wear, the contact lens should have around 35 should be the decay, and extended wear should have the 125 decay, right? So the current practice, what we have silicone hydrogels, most of them are available above 125 decay. So it is like 140, 160. So these are the better material to provide the good oxygen supply. So that's the key factor where you have to understand. So always look for the good oxygen permeability material so that you can minimize the hypoxia changes also. And another material property which is important is the physical related changes is the wettability. So because if you have a good wettability, so it maintains the tear film spreading over on the contact lens surface, and that provides the good comfort also. So if you have a poor wettability, suppose hydrophobic surface is there, where the tear film is not spreading over, so definitely what happens, it lead to have a discomfort. So that can lead to have the formation of the deposits, more of lipid formation of the deposits can occur. So that lead to have the blurring vision, and other inflammatory reactions also can across into the clients will be facing those difficulties. And another could be the stiffness. That the stiffness is nothing but rigidity nature basically. So this is because of the high modulus of the material. So usually, so some of the materials like first generation of silicone lenses, if you see, those are having the high modulus of elasticity. So when you have a high modulus of elasticity, so it gives the good amount of the durability, and then maintains the good structure to the contact lenses, and it may not tear easily also. And another physical characteristics where you look for is a lens should be material, it should be optically transparent, and as well as it should have a biocompatible properties. This is very much important. The biocompatibility properties, like biocompatibility is nothing but which should not react or which should not cause any kind of immunological changes to the eye surfaces or ocular structures. So that is important, one of the factor where you have to look to for the any kind of contact lens material. And then, so one of the major thing what you have to look for is the lens design. When it comes to the lens design, so or fitting characteristics. So if you achieve a very good optimal fitting characteristics, then that is well and good enough. If not, then that can lead to have a mechanical related changes, which I have said in the earlier also. So you should when you have a good fitting characteristics, it maintains the good relation between the lens and the cornea, and then so that maintains the good tear exchange of the lenses also, and provide the good comfort also. So then moving on to the next one, which is there is the clinical manifestation. What we look for is, so if you are looking for the clinical manifestations of hypoxia, like majorly when you talk about what are the changes you come across. So when it comes to the hypoxic changes, so majorly, so I'm going to discuss about how the corneal structural level changes and what are the clinical manifestation you come across. So if you are looking at the clinical manifestations, so one of the first thing which I'm going to discuss about so effect of the hypoxia, and then how the structural changes of the cornea, especially epithelium, stroma and endothelium, how the changes which happens and what are the manifestation you come across. So especially, so when you have the oxygen supply is not enough, so what happens? So there will be some kind of the fluid accumulation on the epithelial or stromal level, and that can lead to have a decrease of the epithelial cell mitosis. And then, so in the stromal level, it increases the stromal lactic accumulation. So there will be anaerobic pathway which is taken to the place. Anaerobic means absence of the oxygen, the physiological pathway which comes. So that produces a lactic accumulation. So that lead to have a the stromal edema. So that is the major reason how the edema occurs, and this lead to have the decrease in the corneal sensitivity also. So the epithelial edema. So epithelial edema here, so the cornea requires a certain amount of the oxygen to prevent the corneal edema. So if that is reduced, so as I said, so the shift when the oxygen is not supplied, so it goes to the anaerobic pathway, and that can produce the lactic accumulation, and with that it maintains the osmotic gradient, and more water presence in the cornea. The water is more present means the more fluid accumulation. So that gives the epithelial edemas. So epithelial edemas or epithelial changes has been described into so various ways. So one of the epithelial level, the clinical manifestation which is so observed over a period of time, even if it's in the literature also, the microcyst. So the microcysts are, it is very tiny cystic bodies contained to the cellular debris. So you have a fluid accumulation with the cystic bodies. So these can be observed only in the higher magnification of with the higher magnification slit lamps. Like if you have a 30 to 40x magnification in the epithelial level, detailed structural whenever you want to see, then only you can observe these kind of the changes. But these are long-term hypoxic changes which is come across on the epithelial level. And these are usually, so they form on the basal cells and they slowly migrate to the other corneal cells in the epithelium also. And these are better visualized with the reversed illumination. So here, why the reverse illumination? Because so the microcysts are having the higher refractive index than surrounding tissue. So you can see this image, like you will understand better. So the arrow mark which represents here is a microcyst. So these microcysts will have higher refractive index than the surrounding tissue. So definitely what happens when the light passes there, so it reflects more. So with the reverse illumination, you can easily observe these kind of the changes. So another change which comes in the epithelial level, which is the vacuoles. The vacuoles are similar to microcyst, but these are empty pockets. So it not contains any dead cell accumulation or cystic bodies. These are empty pockets with the fluid. So here, so these are easily observed with the unreversed illumination. So unreversed illumination. So why unreversed illumination? Because the vacuoles are lower refractive index than the surrounding tissue. So you can see here these vacuoles which is there here. You can see the arrow mark here. So these are, so surrounding tissue is higher refractive index. That's the reason that is reflecting. But whereas vacuole which is there is a lower refractive index. You can see the black color appearance there. So that is the major differentiation. How do you differentiate from the macrocysts to the vacuoles? And these are generally asymptomatic. So the clients who are walked to your clinic, they may not be having any symptoms, but on the clinical examination with the higher magnification of the epithelial level, you can easily make out these changes. And then, so you have to address these changes which comes into the epithelial cells. And then, so you can give them the advice of the discontinuation of the lenses for certain period of time. So that it can disappears over a period of time. It can take days to or weeks. And epithelium, you know that it's a regenerates the epithelium, and then it maintains the good structural integrity also. And then moving on to the another clinical manifestation because of the hypoxia is the stromal edema. The stromal edema is like the manifestation finds like the wrinkling appearance. Either it should be in the form of the striae or in the folds, which is in the descemet membrane, which comes that. So usually striae or folds, they approximate the stromal edema, which is like 5 to 9%, which carries the amount of the edema which comes back. So here, if it is up to more than 50%, the extension of the stromal edema which comes, that may not be associated with the contact lens also. It can be related to the any other cause related also. So how do you differentiate from the striae to stroma? So when it comes to the striae, these are thin vertical lines and the black color appearance which comes at the stromal level, and edema is around 5 to 6% of the time. So as you know that the physiological corneal edema is up to 4%, 3 to 4%. So that is the normal for every individual. But when the edema is increased up to 6%, so that is the you can assume that so there could be the striae formation which is occurred in the stromal level also. And then another is a fold. The fold is a thicker and the oblique appearance, whitish color, which is forms on the stromal level. But here the edema can goes to the up to 8 to 10%. The significant edema which holds by the folds here. The severe condition, it can go to more than 15% also. That is can be possible with the corneal haze appearance can be seen that is easily observed with the sclerotic factor of the illumination technique which you see that. So what could be the history behind this? How this edemas is forming? So there could be the reasons which could be because of the thick lens design. So as you see that aphakic, if you have a central portion thicker and the periphery is thinner, so what happens when you have a thicker portion? As you know that less oxygen applied to through that particular contact lens. So definitely, so that can lead to aphakic changes. In the high myopes also, high myopes, what happens? It is opposite to the aphakic, like peripheral thickness will be more central compared to the centrous. So there, the peripheral changes you tend to see that. And prism ballast, when you have a soft toric lenses, the prism ballast technique when you have, so that area will be thicker. So definitely the less oxygen supply will be there. So what you have to understand here, the oxygen supply is minimized, so then you tend to see these kind of the changes. And low decay materials, as we discussed also, and extended wear. Extended wear, if you want to prescribe, so in current practice, we don't advise that, but still the clients can use in extended wear time, right? So they tend to take a nap, they tend to sleep. So it's always good to prescribe this good silicon hydrogel material, which is the high decay. So that will be a better option to avoid these kind of the changes. And generally, so whatever we discussed about the epithelial and stromal level changes, so those will be symptomatic, like asymptomatic they are. And what we see there is a common complaint what we come across is the color halos, right? So whenever they are seeing any light, they tend to see the blue color appearance. So that is the key factor where you have to understand that. If you shine a light and they observe that there's a blue color ring patterns which are observed, so that is gives the, so there will be certain amount of the edema which is accumulated on the structural level of the cornea. So that is the way you can differentiate and then look for the proper clinical examination and then go for the management issues. Treatment, so as we discussed, so it is basically, so you need to go for the higher decay materials and think of giving the, even if you are hydrogels, think of giving the high water content so that high decay materials, and a thinner design is always advised to provide the good oxygen supply also. And so tend to give the slightly looser side so that good tear exchange, especially RGP, definitely you will achieve a good tear exchange, but soft lenses, the minimal tear exchange, so that's slightly loose side, so that will be better to provide the proper tear exchange also. And another structure changes which comes in the corneal is the endothelium. So this is endothelial structure is very much important to maintain a good pump mechanism, to maintain the good endothelial barrier functions. So all this endothelial structure, which is like, okay, so which is the not regenerated structure, right? So here, so because of the long-term changes of the hypoxia, so you tend to see there could be some kind of changes which comes occur in the endothelium also. There could be cell density increases. So another term what we come across here is a polymechanism. What is polymechanism? Increase in the cell size. So when you have endothelial cell size is increased, so definitely, so what happens? So there will be structural changes. So that can lead to have the integrity of the endothelial can deform. And another pleomorphism. Pleomorphism is change in the shell shape, right? The shell shape of the endothelium. So that could be. Kernel guttata, it is periodic thickening of the Descemet membrane. You tend to see in the central area. And the peripheral also, you tend to see that's called SLL warts also. So that's the guttata changes you come across. And another, these are more of concave shape of the appearance, you tend to see that. And endothelial blebs. Endothelial bleb. The bleb is nothing but the fluid accumulation on endothelial cells. So these are convex shapes. So quite opposite to the guttata appearance. And then so these are tend to see in the when you have long-term chronic hypoxia changes are PMMA virus. So PMMA is polymethyl methacrylate, which is oxygen supply is 0. So those lenses if they use, so these are the permanent changes which come across in the endothelial level. So as we said, so low decay materials, or if they are using in extended wear also, it can be. Usually the symptoms, they'll not be having any symptoms because long-term changes, so don't find it. But it's always, as a clinician, you have to look for these changes. The detailed examination, you can go with the 30x magnification with the specular reflection with the slit lamp. You can observe these changes and then go for the discontinuity of the lenses, especially for certain period. And then if they are using extended wear, advise them not to go with the extended wear, and the daily wear is much important. And then prescribe with the high decay materials. So whenever you are prescribing the high decay materials, if they are using a PMMA, 0 decay material, then you can slowly increase the decay value. So the first for 6 months or 1 year, go with the mid decay, like 30-40 decay can be prescribed and get used to it. And then so you can go with the high decay like 90 or 100. In case if you're not doing these steps, then they can lead to have a corneal exhaustion syndrome. So there will be corneal exhaustion syndrome, means there will be more symptoms they will face even if suddenly if you shift them to high decay materials. So that should not be. So you should go with a step by step when you are dealing in these conditions, and monitor these changes will be 3 to 6 months for resolving and comes to the normal pattern of the structural level. So then moving on to the next segment, which is a mechanical related complications. So since we discussed it with hypoxia, now I'm moving to the mechanical. So these the mechanical related complications, commonly what we come across, every practitioner of the contact lenses looks for this kind of the changes in the regular practice, and very common. And as a practitioner, you should know how to diagnose this and how to give the management also. And this starts with the mechanical changes, but if it's a severe stage, this goes to the inflammatory reactions also, right? So CLPC, contact lens induced papillary changes. When it comes to contact lens induced papillary changes, so it is like basically you look for its effects on the upper nasal conjunctiva. Commonly is referred as also GPC, giant papillary conjunctivitis, when in the severe conditions. And major symptom what you see with this kind of the complication is the discomfort or intolerance. And if it is very severe stage, if you are not treated, so the leading cause can be patient dropout from the contact lens usage also. So annual incidence in the various studies which gives that the soft contact lens wearer tend to have up to 15% of the soft lens wearer, you will see these changes which come across. But RGP is slightly minimal, because RGP you will have a good kind of the tear exchange, so that the deposits may not occur on the lens surface that frequently as the soft lenses. So the less incidence in the RGP compared to the soft lenses. So what are the risk factors? The reasons for it. So common thing which is the deposit build, the protein deposits which is developed on the lens surface. So that can lead to have the mechanical friction on the UTC and then lead to papillary change. We'll discuss about how that mechanism works, and then increase the lens period if they are using for the longer period, and then they are not following the replacement schedule, like recommended period if they're not following, if they're in overuse. So definitely more deposits forms, and then that can lead to have these changes. And it was observed that large diameter lenses are extended wear also. This commonly this kind of application come across. This is an example how the deposits look, the protein related. And the symptoms, so these are the symptoms which you see that. So it starts with the mild itching and then goes to the severe type of itchings also. Mucus discharge, excessive lens movement, and when they are discharged, it can lead to a blurring vision, redness, and foreign body sensation. So the signs is mainly you will have, we'll discuss further more in the grade form also. So the papillae, so the papillae formation which comes is a polygonal shape, hyperemic elevations which you see on the tarsal area, and the ranging from the 0.5 to more than 2 mm also. The 2 mm, which is the papillae size, it comes as a giant papillary conjunctivitis also. And it could be localized or generalized also. And you tend to have mild bulbar congestion also. And Alan Smith here is described about the each stage, what are the symptoms you will find it. So the better understanding to treat the CLPC is you can go with the stages or grades. So that gives a better understanding when to give the proper treatment. The stage 1, what are the symptoms and what are the signs you tend to see and how you go into the management. Similarly, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. So each one I'm going to discuss in detail now. The stage 1 is like you tend to see the mild lens awareness. So mild itching, maybe mild injection on the UTC also. So that could be the thing. But when it comes to the stage 2, so definitely, so a slight increase in the mucus discharge, patient feels more itchy, lens awareness also increases, lens intolerance, and the congestion and slightly enlarged papillae you tend to see. Stage 3 is much more severe. So you tend to see the increased mucus discharge, blurring vision, reduced wearing period, and the excessive lens movement. Stage 4 is the most severe condition where the client is definitely intolerant to the lenses, marked discomfort, blurring vision, and then so lens coating and the excessive lens movement can be seen also. So here one of the typical symptom which we come across when we see in the stage 4 condition. So usually what happens is till the period, till the stage 3, they're not willing to use for the longer period, or the lens awareness will be more. Whereas when it comes to the stage 4, the client will think about it like he don't want to remove the lens. So why it could be? So as soon as you remove the lenses, because the papillary size is more bigger, so the papillae is adhered to the epithelium and gives a more discomfort back. So that's a typical symptom we come across when we see in the stage 4. So if the patient says this is the symptom I'm facing, so you should think about, okay, the papillae condition may be the much severe stage also. And then moving on to the signs. The signs of the papillary conjunctivitis has been described into 2 ways. One is called papillary redness, another roughness. The redness is nothing but how the hyperemia, so basically blood vessel formation on the UTC. Roughness is papillary formation, papillae size, and the how much area the papilla is extended. So if you see in the redness, the grade 1, we say the very slight is the stage 1. So where you tend to see this picture, you will understand here, very little vessel dilatation with the underlying tissue which is there. So that the color dominates. The color dominates and you tend to see the very little dilatation. But when it comes to the grade 2, you see the major vessels are dominate here. Comparing, you can just compare the 2 images here. So how these vessels are dominate here, and the which more little dilatation of the capillaries also you can find that. And slightly, if you see this is more of yellowish. Now slightly it is forming towards the slight reddish color also. And then grade 3, the moderate. Now if you compare here, it is much more red. The capillary dilated, more vessels are also dilated, and loss of underlying tissue. So where the underlying tissue yellow color was there, so now the loss of underlying tissue there, and loss of transparency also. So more of thick red, okay, blood filled areas, you can see that. And if you see the grade 4, much more severe form of the red color, which you can see that. So all vessels are dilated here, and the capillaries also, and then you tend to see torsion of the vessels also. So that suggests of the more severe form of hyperemia, which you see that. And underlying tissue is not seen, loss of transparency. There could be chance that it can be associated with the lid edema also. And then roughness. The roughness is more of papillae, how much is the size and how much area discrete. So whenever you want to see the roughness or redness, the clinical features if you want to observe, always use the diffuse illumination on the slit lamp. So that gives uniform spread over on the light, and then it gives where the reflection on the UTC, so that you can find that observe the papillae now. So if you see here the grade 1, you see very few discrete papillae, which is around 0.2 mm of size, which could be, and the staining, you can see the punctate areas are mild staining, you can look for that. But a grade 2 level, so here if you see that these are 0.3 or 0.4 mm, slightly bigger than the grade 1 now, and more discrete and punctate areas are stained here. But whereas when you see the grade 3, it is the papillae size is much bigger, it goes to the 0.3 to 1 mm, and widespread of punctate areas with the staining and the general some collagens. So the collagens is a group of staining you can tend to see on the on the UTC also. And the severe, the grade 4 is, so you can see the more than 1 mm papillae size. It could be range up to 2 mm with the giant related papillae, and the widespread and confluent staining you can tend to see on the staining also. So now we move on to the pathogenesis. What could be the reason or how this CLPC is developing? So now what happens is, so here when the deposit form on the lens surface, whenever you blink, what happens whenever you blink? The upper lid interacts with the lens surface, so that the deposits will be interacting on the upper tarsal conjunctiva with the cells which are there on the epithelial cells on the conjunctiva. So that gives an overreaction of the body immune system to immunogens and allergens that can develop the antigen antibody mechanism. So this lead to have degranulation of the mast cells. That's the major thing. Okay, the degranulation of the mast cells. So when the degranulation of the mast cells, which happens on the cell level changes in the UTC, that releases the histamine. Histamine is the major cause to develop the inflammatory mediators and the papillary formation, right? So basically there is a degranulation of the mast cells because of the deposits which are there. So that can lead to have release of histamines and papillary changes can happen. So that's the major pathogenesis which is there. So now moving on to the management. When we talk about management, we talk about in the first stage, very slight stage. So where the symptoms are less and the clinical features also very minimal you tend to see. So here, unless if they don't have any symptoms, no treatment, just observe. And the second one is a slight. So they'll have the slight itching and awareness. So these symptoms will be there. So definitely you can look for the lubricant to prescribe and ask them to reduce the wearing period. And then more emphasis on the proper care and regimen. This is very much important because to remove the deposits on the lens surface, you can ask them to go with the proper care and regimen, disinfection methods, you can suggest them and then monitor on the how they are doing the care and regimen. And the moderate, this is the stage 3. So definitely they'll have more symptoms. So lubricants should be prescribed here. So if you wanted to reduce the papillary changes or hyperemia, so ask them to discontinue the lenses for certain period of time, couple of weeks to 3 weeks, and then based upon their wearing schedule or replacement schedule, you can shift them. If they're using conventional, make them to disposables. If they're using a disposable soft lenses, daily disposables also. If they're developing CLPC, then shift them to RGP lenses. So that way you can give the more recommendations to have reduce the formation of the papillary changes also. But in the severe stage is like they'll have more symptoms. So definitely you should look for the discontinuation of the lenses for 4 weeks. And then here, apart from the lubricates to reduce the inflammation on the conjunctival level, so you should start with the antihistamine drugs or mast cell stabilizers or low grade of steroids also can be prescribed certain period of time. So that is the management where you look for it. And similarly, in these conditions also, you can change the replacement schedule so that the incidence of the papillary changes in the coming years will be much low. So then moving on to the another type of complication. So this goes to the category of hypoxia related. So here it is the complication which is called vascularization. This is also, it is like asymptomatic majorly. So on the clinical examination, you find this patient may not be having symptoms, but how does it look? So if you see vessel penetration into the clear cornea behind the translucent zone. So the vascularization is normally avascular corneal results from the variety of corneal insults, including contact lens wear. So this basically what happens is, so especially when you are dealing with the high myopes. Okay, so high myopes, the peripheral thickness will be much more, so low oxygen supply to the peripheral area of the cornea, especially limbal to peripheral region. So what happens? So there you tend to see, because of the thickness of the lens, so you tend to see there will be less oxygen supply, so that can lead to have a more of basal penetration. That's a common like regular practice what we come across. So when you see that, so patient may not be having any symptoms also. So but there could be slight compromisation could be there visual acuity if the severe conditions also. And signs, so it could be seen with the, you can see the slides here, so the images which is there. So there could be superficial vessels on the from limbus to the cornea, it can penetrate to that. Or if it's severe condition, you tend to see deep vessels also. Deep vessels means you need to look for that pathology. It could be having any other pathology related issues also. And lipid excavations also can be seen. And the long-term changes, scarring can occur, and intracorneal hemorrhage we see that. At the clinical examination, what you look? So you have to look, you may see the limbal hyperemia will be there surrounding the limbal area. There will be some congestion or looping of the vessels, whether it could be uniform or non-uniform. You have to, from the limbus, how much area is penetrated to the corneal surface, that you, if you measure, that will be good. So that you can monitor in the follow visits whether the vasculation increasing or not. So that is the, you can observe in the clinical examinations. So as I said, the risk factor is, first thing is more of corneal hypoxia and excessive lens deposits also. And it could be ill fitting, like tight fitting lens, that can lead to have, because so if it is a tight fitting, so definitely, so the lens can go much tighter there, and then the blood flow can be obstructed. So then vessel penetrations can be penetrate to the limbal to the corneal area also. And thicker lenses, as you know that, and corneal epithelial desiccations also, you tend to see that. So pathogenesis here, the chronic apraxia, so that can lead to stomal iterations. So as we discussed in the first clinical manifestations, when you talk about hypoxia, the stomal iteration, so there is a lactic accumulation is formed that can lead to have inflammatory cells, and then the inflammatory cells can produce the release of the vascular endothelial growth factor, so that can lead to have the neovascularization. So that's the major mechanism which to develop the vascularization. How do we go with the management? So when you talk about management, you tend to have, so when you have a severe vascularization, you can go for the temporary discontinuation. And then if related fitting related issue is there, then do the proper fitting. Regular follow-ups, you can do that, and go with the high decay material so that you can minimize the hypoxia changes, so vasculation may not occur. And always good to prefer to go to RGP in these conditions, because already cornea is compromised. So because the RGP, you get a less incidence of the hypoxia changes. And even if it's a severe condition, you can look for the permanent discontinuation of the lenses also. Then moving on to the inflammatory conditions. Inflammatory, or you can go with the infectious also. So there is a nice classification which is given by the CCLRU and LVP group with the long-standing studies in the late 90s. So with that, so there has been classified into the majorly 3 groups. So one is known as the serious adverse events, another is a significant, and the non-significant. So when it comes to the serious, the most devastating conditions, vision threatening and microbial keratitis. Significant when it comes to the seal, CLPU, CLAIR, and IK. Non-significant, AIK and AI. So we're going to discuss each one now. So how these complications can occur, what could be the pathogenesis, and clinical features management. So now coming to the seal. The seal is a significant adverse event which has been classified. So seal is nothing but superior epithelial arcuate lesion. So here, this thin arcuate white line within 1 to 3 mm of the superior limbus areas between 10 to 2 o'clock in the area, the normally, so which covered by the superior lid, right? So if you see the superior lid is covered in that particular area, so many of the clinicians also may miss this kind of the findings also. So usually whenever the seal occurs, there could be asymptomatic also, they may not be having any symptoms. So, but as a good contact lens practitioner, you should be able to have a detailed examination, find these changes which occur on the superior limbal area also. So as I said, it is more of asymptomatic, and then so there could be possibility mild symptoms. They may have edge awareness, irritation, and foreign bodies. When you have irritation and foreign body, you should look for these kind of the changes. So underneath of the lens, you find this typical clinical features. So how does it look? So it's a science when you talk about the superior peripheral cornea, you see that arc shaped. It's arcuate shaped, which you see that, and heaped edge, grayish white color. So you tend to have, and it could be 0.5 to 0.5 mm width and 1 to 0.5 mm of length, which you see that. The signs when you are looking, if you put you can see the surrounding the arcuate lesion, you can find the diffuse cellular reactions, and then there could be the epithelial or anterior stromal fluorescent staining, where you can find when the surrounding of the arcuate shape, which you can look for that. What could be the reasons? The risk factors, it could be because of the late cut lenses, the customized design, when you have a thicker edge, so that could be the major thing. Or another major thing, which is the literature suggests that you have a high modulus of elasticity in the material. High modulus of elasticity means you have elasticity is much higher than the regular lenses. So definitely, so this can use more the mechanical pressure on the limbal area, the periphery of the lens design, and then that can lead to have the arcuate shape of the appearance, which you can see on the cornea. So that could be the major thing what you can for that. So, and another, it could be the thick lenses, could be the reason which comes that. So thick lenses and the high modulus of elasticity is there, so that can give rise to the more of having these changes. So, and what was observed in the current practice, what we see is the more of the first generation lenses. The first generation lenses, when we talk about, so if you see the pure vision or focus night and day, so these will have significant higher elasticity compared with other lenses. So in those lenses, these kind of changes were commonly noticed compared with other silicon or hydrogels. So that's the reason. So when you come across these changes, you can look for the which brand or what is the reason how it is developing. Based upon that, your management will be dependent. So here, pathogenesis, when we talk about, so as I said, it's more of mechanical related. So the amplification. So the reason could be, one could be say that hypoxia induced or tear film thinning also. So the management is simple here. So management, when you talk about here, it is discoloration of the contact lens wear, and then lubricates can be used for the symptoms relief, to monitor for reoccurrence. That is important. So if you find why this is happening, as I said, this first generation lenses creating these kind of the mechanical changes, then you can change the brand. You can go with the second generation, third generation, which is having the lower modulus elasticity and slightly thinner lenses. So that may not be having these kind of the issue. So then moving on to the other significant adverse event, which is known as the CLARE, contact lens induced acute red eye. So which is like, so this is more of inflammatory changes which is compound. So commonly when we see that if they are using an extended wear basis, this kind of the complication, see that. So it is first described by the Jantos and Holden in 1978. So the definition of the CLARE is the inflammatory reaction of the cornea and conjunctiva subsequent to a period of eye closure. Remember this, eye closure with the soft contact lens wear, characterized by focal, diffuse, peripheral, and corneal minimal or no epithelial involvement. So what does it mean? So when you have an eye close, so if he's using the extended wear, so and the next day morning, they tend to be symptoms and the clinical features which come across. That's a typical kind of the symptoms what we see, and then only we can diagnose as a CLARE. The CLARE we want to diagnose, you should have a typical symptom of, so for eye closure, there is no symptoms. Patient was very much quiet and happy. And he slept with the lenses. Next day morning, when he woken up, so you can see that the eyes appears red and an irritation, moderate pain. There is a burning sensation, photophobia. These symptoms develop. So when the lens is on, so definitely, so that can be diagnosed as the contact lens induced acute red eye. So the signs what we see here, it's more of lid edema. It is uncommon, plus or minus, or you can have the diffuse bulbar conjunctival condition. It could be moderate or severe also, but more of condition you tend on the throughout the 360 degree limbal areas. You see that. I'll show the picture, so you can see in that. And then non-involved with the corneal epithelium, majorly It is a fine diffuser focal cellular infiltrates we find the peripheral or mid-peripheral location of the anterostromal depth. That's the typical signs we see that diffuse or focal infiltration on the anterior stromal level. And anterior chamber is very uncommon. This is the picture you see that. So you can see the bulbar conjunctival area, more redness you can appearance here, and then circumciliary congestion also you will see surrounding the limbus also. So what could be the risk factors? The common is overexposure. So the patient is using while sleeping also. That's the reason for it. And it is found that because of the gram-negative bacteria, so gram-negatives like Pseudomonas or so these can develop for acute red eye. And it was observed that acute respiratory tract infection people have and using the contact lenses. So this can be one of the risk factor also. The pathogenesis when we talk, so definitely, so what happens is, so whenever we wear the lens, without the lens or with not wearing the lenses also, there will be some bacteria adhere with our ocular flora. Right. So when the lens with the adherent bacteria, so what happens? So the leach toxins and byproducts. Okay. So the leach toxins and byproducts. So what happens? It develops from the bacteria. So when the eye is closed, what happens? The bacteria, what are the toxins which is developed that build up? So and then that can penetrate to the contact lens to the ocular surface. It can do the connection, right? So that can lead to have a red eye. So basically, what is the bacteria develops the leach of the toxins which build up on the ocular surface area. So that is penetrate to the contact surface and develop the red eye. But when you that is the very common thing. In the open eye, when you talk about, so usually what happens when the eye is open, the toxins still develop here. This will be eliminated with the regular blinking actions and so there is no flare. But in the closed eye condition, the bacteria which is developed the toxins will build up there. So there is no way to go out. So that's the reason what happens. So they tend to penetrate to the contact surface and irritates the ocular surface there. Management is so here it is more of the inflammatory condition. There is no infectious. So you can discontinue the lenses for a certain period of time. Usually we go for the 1 week time. So the discontinuation and you can prescribe some lubricants to symptom relief. And then so after the 3 weeks time when the condition is more resolved and then comes to the normal, you can ask them to start wearing contacts also. But provided them, you tell them for daily wear, not use for extended wear conditions also. Then moving on to the another significant advantage, which is CLPU, contact lens induced peripheral ulcer. So this is also very known to me as significant kind of complication which comes with the contact lenses. But this is very tricky. So if you are misdiagnosed, then it can goes to the macrovillary keratitis also. It is very, very important to understand what is the differential factors in CLPU and the macrovillary keratitis also. So by definition, CLPU is inflammatory reaction of the cornea characterized in its active stage by excavation of the epithelium, infiltration, and the necrosis of the anterior stroma. So it's basically open there. So there is inflammatory reaction which comes to the cornea that will have epithelium and the stromal changes. The symptoms: mild redness can be there, moderate to negligible pain, watering, irritation, foreign body, and need to have certain. So patient may be sometimes it is very early, they will be asymptomatic also. The signs, these are having the typical signs. So how do you diagnose this condition? Based upon the sign. So whereas when I'm talking about here, I said typical symptom of eye closure and the next day morning it has, so that is a clear. But a CLPU is typically based upon the signs. So how the signs, which is the appearance of the infiltrate, based upon that you diagnose this. So here what happens is the signs, if you see that the lid, maybe occasional edema could be, and moderate to severe congestion and where the localized infiltrate area, the infiltrate which forms here, it is a very, very single, small, like one infiltrate, small, round, which is around 1 white, yellowish white focal infiltrate in the periphery and the mid-peripheral area. If the infiltrate occur on the peripheral midfield area and round, circular, dense yellowish white, which is 1 mm. So when it comes to the contact lens peripheral ulcer, so you tend to see the differential diagnosis of the early early microbial keratitis or marginal keratitis. So here the pathogenesis of the CLPU remains unclear, because it was found that the culture negative means on scraping also you didn't find any kind of microorganism. What could be the reason why this is developed? So that was the thing. So still it is unclear why this is developing, but it has been some studies also shown that it could be because of the gram negative or gram positive bacteria also. But most of the time when it is present, when they do the culture, it is more of negative type of the peripheral ulcer. You tend to see that. So pathogenesis of the CLPU, when you talk about, so it is more of the contact lens acts as a vector and the traps antigen material, and then that can lead to have epithelial trauma. So that releases the pro-inflammatory cytokines and develop the inflammatory cells. So basically, it is a similar kind of the clay how the bacterial toxins which builds and then it penetrates to the contact lens surface and then goes to the inflammatory kind of condition. But this could be because this could be may not be extended wear also. It could be daily wear also. It can come. So it all depends. So how this is come across. So you should able to differentiate from the what are the clinical features are there, and then based upon that you can diagnosis. And management, when it comes, it's a self-limiting. So you have to wait for a certain period to resolve it. Discuss a couple of weeks, and then so here when you discontinue the lens, the symptoms are reduced or signs are improved, like it's a resolving condition, then that is good. If you find after discontinue the lenses also, if the symptoms are not reduced, it is increased more, so then definitely you should suspect of the MK could be possible cause these kind of the inflammatory reaction also. So we go into the more detail about microbial keratitis now, which is a serious adverse event where it gives the more complication in the contact lens related virus. So here by the definition, which is known as the infection of the cornea by microbes, that is characterized by the excavation of the epithelium, Bowman's membrane and the stroma with infiltrates and necrosis. So whereas now if you see here the difference from the CLPU and microbial keratitis, when talking about CLPU, I said the Bowman's membrane is intact there. Only epithelium and stroma is involved. But whereas when it's come to the microbial keratitis, it is because of the infection majorly. So that's inflammation, this infection. So here epithelium, Bowman and the stroma all is involved, and there will be necrosis of infiltration. You tend to see that much significant necrosis which happens. So that can go to the AC also, and then you have AC reaction severe form could be seen in the microbial keratitis. So if you see here, it is a pain, severe injection, corneal edema, lid edema, antechamber reaction, epithelial and stromal corneal involvement also. So the early stage is critical and severe to things. So early stage of treatment is very much important to restore the vision basically. So this is how the microbial keratitis looks. So you tend to see the thick infiltrates and the significant epithelial effect, and the hypopyon also you see in the anterior chamber. And history, so it could be reason could be extended wear because of the lack of oxygen, and then that can lead to have inflammation and then develop the infection also. And one of the another thing is poor compliance. So if they are not properly clean the lenses, lens case, and if they maintain dirty, so that can have the microorganisms grown in that particular lens on the lens case, and that can lead to develop these kind of infections. And the diagnosis based upon the clinical findings, like if you see the signs, epithelial and the dense infiltrate, so large epithelial defect can be found. Infiltrations, you will see that there are bulbar conjunctivitis and severe AC reaction. You can see severe form hypopyon, discharge can be, and then they'll have more symptoms also. What could be the reason? So most common organisms which you see in the contact related complications, which is our Serratia. These are gram-negative bacteria, which could be other organisms like Staphylococcus. So this can lead to have microbial keratitis. And another thing is Acanthamoeba. They are like prone to have in the contact lens wearers in the same time. So then, be in the swimming pool area. So then that can develop a acanthamoeba keratitis also. The treatment here, discontinuation of the lenses, you need to do the culture, do the infiltration which is there condition. That way you can control the condition. So the early detection is very much important. So when it comes to the treatment of the microbial keratitis, so basically the first thing what you have to look for is the discontinuation of the lenses, and then you can go for the scraping. So whatever the condition which you come across in the ulcer form, so do the scraping, culture it, and find what is the microorganisms. Either it could be bacteria, fungus, or acanthamoeba, whatever. So based upon that, your treatment management can be taken to the consideration. So whatever the microorganism which is there, so that kind of the treatment can be provided. And initially, it can be provided with a higher frequency, and then slowly you can taper those things. But always it's good to have a early detection of the microbial keratitis so that the vision can be restored. So then one of the most thing where the practitioner should look for is the how do you differentiate from the CLPU to microbial keratitis. So here, so if you see the CLPU, the symptoms will be much lesser than the microbial keratitis. So that's one of the key factor what you have to look for. And the clinical feature when you talk about signs, so here, so as I discussed, the CLPU will have certain kind of the typical features on the cornea, how the infiltrate looks like that. So one of the major thing what you have to look for it. So the infiltrate which is there small, round, circular, around 1 to 1.5 mm, and which is on the peripheral area. That is the thing where you have to look for. And the congestion will be localized and the lead edema unusual it can be. But when it comes to the microbial keratitis, the infiltrate location could be anywhere. It could be paracentral or it could be peripheral or anywhere. And shape of the infiltrate also irregular, and it could be larger than 1.5. So these are the changes which comes, and severe form of the congestion which is on the lid edema. So that with this you can differentiate which will be the MK and the CLPU. And so because these clinical kind of the skills you should develop, because if it is you suspect the MK, then immediately you have to refer them to ophthalmologist so that the treatment can be start and then it can be resolved much in a lesser period and restore the vision. So that's the differentiation factor where you have to look for that. So another thing is infiltrative keratitis, which is a significant infiltrative adverse event, which we say. So here the infiltrative keratitis, this is the term which is actually considered, which is the whenever they see the any kind of complication, which is symptoms and the sign, which is not comes under CLAIR or which is not comes under CLPU. So that kind of the condition goes to the category of the infiltrative keratitis. So what does it mean? So the CLAIR is typically, when I said, it is on eye closure, and as soon as they woke up in the morning, they find the symptoms and the signs. So that is typically CLAIR if you have that history. And the CLPU, you should have circular, round, and focal infiltrate on the periphery. So if it is not matching to these two, but if you find there could be some kind of cellular reaction on the stromal level and the mild redness on the conjunctiva, so that can lead to have an infiltrative keratitis. That is the criteria what they look for is whenever they classified this. So here also symptoms will have a redness, mild to pain or pain and irritation. There could be water, same symptoms as the CLAIR and CLPU also. But clinical features, when you see here, it is a typically similar appearance of the CLAIR you see here. So you see anterior stromal focal infiltrate, diffuse, focal, and there could be plus or minus epithelial defect also. So keratitis means definitely epithelial involvement. So there will be staining which come across that. So there could be chance of having the mild epithelial defect on the where the focal infiltrate also. So that is the thing. But these not having the history may not be having the eye closure. So even in the daily wear, the client may say that no, I didn't sleep with the lenses. But if you find these clinical features, so you can rightly diagnose as a infiltrative keratitis. So those are called which is non-significant adverse events. So these are asymptomatic infiltrative keratitis. So when I say asymptomatic infiltrative keratitis, so the infiltrative keratitis which comes with the symptoms, They comes with the symptoms and they'll presentation you, and then you will find the clinical features what we discussed. When you talk about asymptomatic, means they don't have any symptoms, but on the regular follow visits on your clinical examination, when you are seeing in a slit lamp, you found some kind of cellular reaction on the cornea, especially anterior stroma, the focal infiltrate and the diffuse cellular reactions. So, and it is stains with epithelial staining also happens. So that is typically known as the asymptomatic infiltrative keratitis. And another is non-significant adverse event, which is called asymptomatic infiltrates. So asymptomatic infiltrate, the differentiation factor with asymptomatic infiltrative keratitis and infiltrate here is, see, when you have epithelial involvement, then only we say keratitis. So here, there is no epithelial involvement. Means you don't find anything on the stain. Okay, so no stain, no epithelial defect, nothing. Only you will find a cellular reaction on the stromal level. Anterior stromal level, you tend to have mild diffuse reaction with a small focal infiltrate, which is less than 0.2 mm also. That could be there seen in the peripheral area. So that's known as the asymptomatic infiltrates. So here, so this is a differentiation factor. How do we go for it? So based upon the clinical features, it has been classified into infiltrative keratitis, asymptomatic infiltrative keratitis, and asymptomatic infiltrates also. But so this is very easy to understand how it goes. But the treatment what is comes is for all three conditions is the same. So the common thing what we advise is immediately is discontinue of the lens wear for any kind of complications. And if they have a symptoms, so give some lubricates and look for the resolving condition about 1 to 2 weeks. So because here, so 2 weeks should be good enough. And then, so once we feel like there is no cellular reaction, epithelium is much intact, there is no staining, then you can go with the advise them to start use the contact lens wearers also. So that's more of the treatment when it comes to the non-significant adverse events. Thank you so much. If any further questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, I think complication is a very vast topic, and I think you made it very easy for us in terms of understanding complications and going about. The most important thing, I guess, is understanding how it occurs and how to manage it. So I guess
that's the key.
That's the key. That's right. So thank you so much, Srikanth sir, for doing this. And in the meantime, there's one question which runs into my mind. Like when we were discussing about most of the management plans, when do you want patients to actually change solution? Because I guess that's also one of the important management sometimes. Is there any idea on when you would suggest your patients to change solution or change to hydrogen peroxide probably? Any tips you would like to give us?
See, the basically actually any solution which is available, okay, whether you are dealing with the soft lens or RGP or sclerals, which is available in the current market. So it is recommended period is like once you open, the maximum you can use for 3 months, right? So not more than that. Okay, so that's the key where you have to emphasize on that. So once you open, so 3 months period, if they're not open, according to the expiry, they can look for it. Okay, so that's one thing. So another could be, see, for the soft contact lenses, when we deal with the soft lenses, we have very good solutions now in the market, because you get a very good bite-through solution from Bausch & Lomb, Pure Moist from the Alcon. So these works very well with any kind of hydrogels or silicone hydrogels. In my practice, I didn't get major solution related issues. So once in a while, I think very long back, I saw the toxic reactions like solution sensitivity or anything like that. Okay, that is in the maybe 15 years back, I think. Yeah, but not in the current practice. Current practice, what we have in the regular solutions which are there, they're very much good, and it doesn't give any kind of solution toxicity. So the soft lenses, this is the best. But when you talk about RGP or sclerals, so you have the RGP solutions, like you have a surfactant mixed, you have so more of Indian practice, we go with the local companies who manufacture the RGP solutions, like where you have the classic crystal MPS from the classic company, Puricon from the GP Advance, and another is the Bausch & Lomb gives the Boston Simplest, that is also very good. So for the RGP lenses and the sclerals. But one of the good solution which is actually not available in India, but that is best one is hydrogen peroxide system. Okay, so it is actually earlier when that was available, sometimes in the 2010 or 2011, 2012 period, Fakhruddin. So we used to prescribe with the scleral lenses also, hydrogen peroxide system. So that time we had Oxycept, Evocept, these were there. So we used to tell them every 3 days, they should soak with hydrogen peroxide overnight, and the next day clean with the regular RGP solutions. So that was worked very well for the scleral lenses. Even RGP also, that's worked very well. So since the solutions are not available in the current Indian market, so we are not advising the hydrogen peroxide system. We majorly depend upon the RGP solutions which are available, but those are also good. But if you are able to get hydrogen peroxide, that is good enough actually. I hope you have in the Malaysia, so you can tend to prescribe. But in India, still the industries are not giving that kind of the solution. But always hydrogen peroxide is the best solution for the RGP and the sclerals. The soft lenses also still you can use it, but it can have precipitates on the lens surface. The peroxide thing can lead to have the toxic reactions also. So it's better to avoid for soft lenses, but RGP and the scleral, that's the best actually. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the reason behind me asking this question was one, that nowadays these solutions have become so great that getting solution toxicity, as you said, you have not seen solution toxicity for the past probably 10 years. You may not have, you have not come across, right? So the solutions have become good enough so that you probably don't have complications with solutions itself, and the availability of hydrogen peroxide in the Indian market is a bit questionable. It's not really available very well. But at the same time, we should be aware, once it is available, I think it's one of the best. So practitioners can go ahead advising that, right? Yeah.
So still actually some of the scleral patients, Fakhruddin, so though because earlier we used to prescribe, so they are very much habituated and they want to continue these hydrogen peroxide system. They get through online. Okay, they get through the online and then they try to find it, or they get from their friends from the US or UK, and then they will ship the solutions and then still they use it actually. So that is the thing. So they know the importance of the hydrogen peroxide and how it comes, and then still they use it. But it's always good to have in practice so that every individual can be use that. So that is the lack in the Indian market. But if you get that, will be good enough actually. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, we do have a couple of attendees from Malaysia as well as from the US. Probably they would be able to prescribe it much easily because it's available here. But nevertheless, I think hydrogen peroxide can play a very important role, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Great.
So we can through email also we can address the questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Srikanth.
Thank you, Fakhruddin, for inviting. So it's nice, a pleasure to be there with the wolves. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Nice. Bye. Okay, so good night, Fakhruddin.
Yes. Bye. Thank you so much. And to the attendees, I'm just gonna share that we have a session tomorrow. We have a session on myopia. This is at a different time. So it's early morning in India, 9:30 a.m. In India, and about 12 noon pre-lunch session, if I may put it that way, tomorrow at Malaysian time. So thank you everyone for joining in today. I hope to see you all again tomorrow. Take care, stay safe, and bye-bye.